Welcome, everybody, into another great edition of The Rundown, your home for local high school sports here at the Big Rapids Media Network. Brandon Wirt, Jack Heckman, kicking off our summer series for you guys. Very excited. We got some MHSA baseball and softball to recap in the regional rounds, as well as we have some great talk about travel ball. We're talking about the three local teams here in the area, as well as an exclusive interview with the man, the myth, the legend himself, the post 98 Ducks command of baseball, not the actual commander, but with the baseball department, JT Scarpelli, on the end of the Big Rapids season and the post 98 Ducks season ahead. We had a great interview with him, and we will get you to that in just a moment. But before that, big thanks goes out to Denny's Muffler and Brakes in Big Rapids. If you need auto repair, whether it's basic repair, as well as maybe even an oil change, specific work on your muffler, brakes, and other auto needs, head on down there and get yourself hooked up at Denny's Muffler and Brakes. You can call the number on your screen for more information to get a hold of Denny's Muffler and Brakes, a proud sponsor of the Rundown. So before we get into the interview with Coach Scarpelli, we'll break down the MHSA regional games and obviously the lone representative in the CSAA, both in baseball and softball, Central Montcalm, Jack, and we obviously were hoping this team would continue and carry onward. Unfortunately for both, falling ultimately in decisions and starting obviously with the Hornets on the baseball side. Great season, and boy, they played really well defensively. Unfortunately, just a bad time for the bats to get cold on the biggest stage.
Yeah, most definitely. We knew the pitching was going to be there, and we talked about it all season long between Lingman and Bracey. Bracey ended up pitching 3 innings. They had someone else come in and relief there towards the end. This was a great Central Montcalm team all year long, but it was just, like you said, a wrong time for the bats to get cold, and them only showing up and getting 2 hits in that game. Just not ideal with 6 combined hits between the two teams, and it was a 2-run game that they lost by 2-0. Just a bad time for the bats to get cold for the Hornets.
Absolutely. And on the softball side, the Hornets just unfortunately ran into a juggernaut in Ravenna. This team certainly seems to be one to watch, especially not only for this year, but for next year, just in retrospect. But overall, Central Montcalm has to be very pleased with the season, getting the upset win over Molly Stanwood and making it through the regional rounds. Hats off to them and what was a great year.
Yeah, most definitely. Like you said, they ran into a tough Ravenna team. That's the number 4 team in Division 3. It's just a bad draw for Central Montcalm, but they're the last remaining softball, or they were the last remaining softball team. Just a great overall season, and going ahead into the next season, you got a lot of hype to build up in this previous season with the district championship.
100%. And one other honorable mention, our team just up to the northeast of us here in Big Rapids, the Evart Wildcats region, the regional final, and a tough loss to Pinconning. A shout out to Coach Johnson and that team, especially for what was a fantastic year. Unfortunately for them, falling short of a state quarterfinal trip. But hats off to the Wildcats. They continue to impress and continue to make great postseason runs here in this last couple years.
Yeah, most definitely. Got some exciting bats and exciting arms that we'll get more into with the post double A talk. But that was a great Everett team that they went very far. You know, we talked about them in the the district previews, being in that Reed City district. They had a really weak district, came out of it on top. They won on a walk-off sacrifice squeeze, and they end up in the regional final. Just think about how close Reed City technically was, but they technically weren't at the same time. But an exciting season for Everett.
Absolutely. We love to see the local success here to finish up this spring season, and we can't wait to see where these teams go into next year. But before we talk more about the travel baseball teams, that including the post 98 Ducks as well as the Big Rapids Lumberjacks, that's right, folks, they're still around. We'll talk about them later on. But first, I had a chance to sit down with Coach Scarpelli, the mastermind of post 98 baseball, and what desire made him bring the team back and put them into Legion baseball. Now joined here, we have a special interview with how we dubbed him as the post command of the Baseball Legion post 98. JT Scarpelli, Coach, thanks for joining us. We'll get to the postseason here in just a moment. That is right around the corner. But first, quick recap. Cardinals, obviously a great season on the high school level. Ultimately fell short in the postseason, although many people see the record and think this team might not have been as good as expected. I mean, you guys had a gauntlet of a schedule. Just talk about the recap of the season overall at high school.
Yeah, I will argue this till the end of my days that this was the toughest schedule this high school has ever seen. I just kind of broke it down to some of the parents the other day that We played 8 D1 teams who had almost a 600 win percentage, and our margin of win-loss in that run-wise was only -2 runs. So we competed in every one of those games, even though we were 2-10. We played 3 Division 4 teams who had an almost 800 combined win percentage. One of those teams is St. Francis, who's not done. We were 2-1 in those games, right? So we had 13 one-run games. We were 5-8 in those games. 8 of those 11 opponents in the one-run games were winning teams. So these guys, they competed with everybody. And the other thing we were talking about, a good kind of summation of the season was to win the conference. We had a come from behind victory in the seventh inning against Grant. With 2 outs, we scored 5 runs to seal the conference. It was over. We had to win one, they had to win three. But then we get to the postseason, and the opposite, not quite the margin, but the opposite happened to us. We were going in with a 3-run lead in the seventh, and then we couldn't hold it. Cadillac was the home team on the coin flip, so they walked it off against us. So it was a completely different offense than what we've had in years past, in that there just wasn't the same firepower, right? We didn't have Brody Sleeper from a couple years ago, Will Strickler from a couple years ago. We didn't have Mason McNeely from last year. We didn't have Philip Wilbur from last year. So a couple guys who could really pop a ball to the fence. And then on top of that, going into the season, we didn't know the status of Gilchek because he had ankle injury in basketball, and now he could be an all-state player for us, right? We didn't think Caden Schuberg was going to be able to play a game because he had surgery on his shoulder at the last week of January, and he was playing by the middle of April. The dude, it's all on him how much he did to make sure he could be recovered and ready to go on that. So there are a lot of uncertainties and a lot of kind of shift in dynamic of how this offense had to work. And they produced at almost, it was like within 5% the same level as the 2023 team with Sleeper, with McNeely, with Wilbur, with Strickler, with some of those guys who could really hit the ball. They produced at almost the exact same level as them in a different way. Because like a guy to highlight is Owen Craven, who didn't even hit 300, but he drew almost 30 walks and had almost a 500 on base percentage and just put the ball in play with runners on third and less than 2 outs. So he was second on the team in RBIs. And then we had big seasons out of Ty, out of Zacco, out of Lazinski, out of Osaski. It's like we had big seasons. We had some surprises, like Cole Heiss hit better than he did the previous year. Kurt Wilbur stepped up and had a really good season on base wise and played a really solid defense. So at the end of the day, it was quite honestly, it was a little bit of the pitching that we just weren't able to get outs on the back end of things. We had to shake that up too, right? Because it's high school and every year things are different. So we had a sophomore who stepped in to be like our closer through down the stretch, and he by and large did a great job for us. Attacked hitters, made things happen, but sometimes it just doesn't work out in the moments that you need it to.
Absolutely. It's still a great season, and obviously a new season ahead now, moving into summer travel ball season, post 98, the American Legion team. Before we talk about, of course, the little bit of the origin story, which I'm sure many people are very curious about, just talk about very briefly the team that you got lined up this year, some of the key tournaments, and what you're looking forward to out of this season.
Yeah, so we don't travel far. I know a lot of travel teams think you got to go to Omaha or Atlanta and do these PBR and perfect game things. I am part of a growing community amongst coaches in this state who see those for what they are. They're money makers and nothing else. You pay all this money, you don't see better competition out of it. So I opted to be, that being a primary reason why I opted to become an American Legion team so that we have access to playing some of the American Legion programs in the state, who these teams are recruited and they are all-star teams for the regions that they're in. Midland Berryhill was the American Legion runner-up nationwide last year. Had the American Legion Player of the Year out of Beale City and Caden Smith, right? I mean, when we faced him, we faced a dude going to Yale throwing 89. So we play Berryhill, we play Linwood. Linwood is recruited out of the Gladwin and Upper Saginaw area as the best players around there. Terry does a great job with them. Post 110. Keith does a really good job with Post 110 out of Mount Pleasant and pulling together. It's meant for the Sacred Heart guys, but he ends up getting Mount Pleasant and Alma and Shepherd and Claire and stuff like that. So he gets guys from all over, right? So that's what we've done this year in particular. We got three guys now from Cadillac. Just added a pitcher. Two studs from Evart. We got Nuego's best guy. We got Central Montcalm's best guy. He's one of the best pitchers in the state. We got a couple guys out of Reed City who can play, and then the rest are Big Rapids guys. But this team is, it's two-part for me. I'm trying to develop kids for my program, but I have no problem developing Caleb Summers and Reese Dew and then having to go compete against them up in Reed City next spring. Right. I have no problem helping develop a guy like Russell Toth, who's done his own development. I'm not trying to take credit for Russ. He's a great player. But for helping a guy like that and then turning around and maybe he beats us like he did this last spring. I got no problem doing that because it just makes baseball better for the entire area to do. So I love having kids not from Big Rapids play with the Big Rapids kids. It creates a really fun environment in the spring because they all know each other, play against each other, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's kind of the origin of it. So I do recruit guys, but at the same time, I got my guys that I'm pretty loyal to. Those are the guys like Ty Gilchek and Wilbur and Osaski and Lazinski, just to name a few. These guys they're some of my dudes that I've been working with for a long time. So they're gonna be there. I want them to play with me. So as long as they want it, they get it. And then the other guys, I'm gonna kind of go out and find them and talk them into it. So, but that's why American Legion baseball is competitive. There are not enough American Legion teams because it's much easier just to slap a jersey together and start your own travel team. There's no barrier to entry on that. But all that really does is water down competition. Right, so you play 1,000 travel teams, and some of these organizations have 1,000 teams, but they really have one team. Right, the other ones are kind of pay to play stuff. I didn't want any of that. We'll save the money. We'll spend the money instead on the guys. So that's a big reason for the American Legion Foundation.
Absolutely. Last question I got for you, Coach. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into the team, and especially having the background of it being in Big Rapids, right? It's the Big Rapids Rubber Ducks originally, now just kind of shortened to the Ducks. What does it mean, especially for you, to have the Legion team not only created with a lot of these players that you've seen or you have under your wing on your team overall as your players, but not only that, but representing the Legion out of Big Rapids and especially the community support to make that happen?
What adds a really special part to this is that every time I tell someone about the Legion team, especially an older player, and I'm not even talking like the old timers, Mark Brecka, our commander for the Legion post, he's one of the old timers who's like, oh, I love Legion ball, like playing it back in the day. It was so great and all that. But I was just talking to my old Hillsdale coach, who's now a hitting coach for the Brewers, and Tyson, right, standing right there on whatever they call it now. I still call it Miller Park. And the on deck circle talking to him after the game, and he said the same thing. Oh, I love Legion ball. Like there's just this kind of like memory of how competitive American Legion baseball is that a lot of people love. So that really helps. It gives, like, we get a ton of support from our post. We try to put zero financial burden on any of those guys. They need to be taking care of veterans and achieving their mission first. But they want to help. They love it. So, that just kind of makes it that much sweeter, that it's just this kind of like old school historic like mode of baseball almost that we're tapping into by just being affiliated with the American Legion. But it gives kids, I mean, there are a lot of baseball players That's it's about the kids first, above anything else. Like that, the nostalgia is great, but it's about the kids above anything else. And like we're gonna go down and play in this Blissfield tournament. There's 14 college coaches showing up to watch this tournament, right? And the reason is because these teams are all teams of all stars, right? You get into that state tournament. I mean, you have guys. Lingman plays for Joe Mack's Capital City team, for the majority of the summer. And then he's going to pretty much just pitch for me at the end of the summer in the tournament. That's how a lot of these guys do it. They go play their travel ball. If they can fill in for Legion, they will. But then at the end of the summer in that tournament, they're there, right? So if you're a college coach, you're at that tournament. You're paying attention to that tournament. So it helps get these guys in our area where exposure is really hard to come by. It helps get them exposed. You go to a Legion tournament, the state tournament, and you go 3 for 4 against a team like Berryhill or Linwood, like Gilchek did last year. He faced a lefty going to Saginaw Valley, and he went 3 for 3 off of him. Lefty lefty matchup, and this dude's hitting 85 to 87. That shows you something, and guys noticed. So now Ty's going to go play at a good program at KVCC, and he had options too. He had other coaches talking to him. He had options to choose from, and it's. I'm not going to say that was all because of that tournament, but it just adds to it, right? So it's a really good opportunity, especially at the AA level, for kids to get exposed. Because there are a lot of dudes around here who can play, and my 2 Evart guys are proof of that. Anderson and Johnson up in Evart are 2 baseball dudes. And no offense to Evart, but they play in Evart, right? So it's a smaller school. You're playing against smaller, lower competition. It's really hard for a college coach to gauge what you can actually do, when you're beating up on these small schools who don't really have any baseball dudes. So you go play some American Legion baseball, show what you can do against some of these better teams, and these guys are going to start figuring out who you are real fast.
For sure. Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining us, and good luck in the Rubber Duck season this year.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good luck to yourself too, Coach Worth.
Hey, right back at you. Big thanks to Coach Scarpelli for joining us here on the Rundown and being able to tell the little origin story of how Legion Baseball is back in Big Rapids. Shout out to him. We'll talk about his team as well as the other 2 local teams. That's right, the Big Rapids Lumberjacks too are back, folks. We'll talk about them later on. But big thanks goes out to Eagle Village, primary sponsor of the Rundown. If you want a meaningful job, visit eaglevillage.org. They are hiring all sorts of positions to make impact in the lives of youth. You can find out more at eaglevillage.org. Eagle Village, where potential soars. All right, Jack, let's get right into it here. Post 98, we'll start with the AA team. This would be considered the major leagues of the American Legion League. Overall, Coach Scarpelli, you mentioned a little bit on the interview. He's got a great roster and a great schedule ahead, and a little bit of a gauntlet. Over 25 games, I believe, scheduled already this summer, and there's a reason for it. He's got a lot of talent on this team, and he wants to test them right away. It starts this weekend in Blissfield, but I'll tell you what, looking at this roster, he's got some of the area's best, not only in the field, not only with the bats, but the arms too. It's going to be exciting to see what they put together.
Yeah, most definitely got an exciting team. I'll get into the schedule a little bit, but this is a very tough schedule if you come back and look at it. They got the Toledo Hawks team, Toledo, Ohio, out of state. They went 8 and 9 in PBR events, had a runs per game of 4 and an opponent run per game of 4.59. Moving ahead a little bit farther, it's the first game versus the Northern Michigan Patriots. They're out of Boyne City. That game will be at Central Michigan. Exciting place to play. Then we'll play after that, the day after, we'll have the Marquette Blues, who are the 2024 Michigan Class A champions. Then the Midland Tribe Shoreline Collegiate team. They got players from all over the state and even out of state. You got Alpena, 4 guys from Northwood, guy from Oakland, Northwest Ohio, Eureka, 2 guys from Mid-Michigan, 3 guys from SVSU, a guy from Montcalm, Palm Beach State, Cecil, Kazoo Valley, Mott, Elma, Jackson, and Aquinas. Those are a lot of schools bringing a lot of guys. The Northern Michigan Patriots will be the second game versus them. You'll have them again. And then post 94 college prep. They've sent 42 players to the next level since 2019. They finished third in the state in Indiana last year. After that, you have the Bay City Coyotes, also a shoreline team, and then Midland Berryhill. If any of you are familiar with Legion Baseball, Midland Berryhill was a national runner-up last year. They also had Caden Smith, who was the Legion World Series Player of the Year and is now the starting shortstop for Central Michigan. He played in 49 games last year. That Berryhill team has definitely have had talent and will have a little bit more talent this year. The day after that, you'll play against Capital City Kings. Interesting one because Emmett Lingman, who's on this Ducks team, is also on Capital City Kings. Little bit of bias there, but then you have the D Las Vegas. 10 Division I commits last year. Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, 3 guys going to Oakland, a guy going to Michigan, guy going to MSU, then CMU, Yale, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. A lot of talent for that D Las Vegas squad. And then you'll play the GR Diamonds, coached by Kelvin College coach. That first game will be, and then you'll have the GVSU tournament. And then on the 15th of July, you'll have the game 2 versus the Diamonds, who's coached by Kelvin, assistant coach. This is a tough schedule for this Ducks team. We'll see how they really are able to handle it.
It's going to be an exciting one indeed. And obviously, we'll throw up the roster up on your screen, but we'll also mention it for all of our radio folks out there. Ian Metzger, as well as Aiden Anderson, number 1 and number 2. You got Kobe Franklin, Brody Osaski, Lucas Johnson, Caleb Sommers, Philip Wilbur, Russell Toth, Reese Dew, Emmett Lingman, Braden Scholes, John Lazinski, Carson Rakoff, Kurt Wilbur, as well as Ty Gielchek and Parker Billings. All of those guys listed on the roster. And as we mentioned, a lot of guys from Big Rapids, a couple over from Evart, Reed City, respectively, and Cadillac, the primary makeup of those teams. And it'll be very interesting to see. Flipping over to the single A squad and that double A squad as well, coached by JT Scarpelli, as well as Craven Bird, assisted by Josh Johnson, as well as Philip Wilbur from time to time. The single A team is Johnny Yonker, and yours truly, myself, helping coach that team. Also a very, very local makeup. A lot of Big Rapids kids. This is obviously the single A team, a little bit more development. A lot of the younger kids, right? Single A going hopefully to double A. That's the goal in development. But quite a few kids from Big Rapids, a couple thrown in from Reed City, as well as Evart, as well as Tri-County. Very good makeup of this squad as well. A little bit less games, a little bit more fun, but a lot of development on the way, and especially playing in some big-time venues like Grand Rapids, where we'll be this weekend.
Yeah, most definitely. This is an exciting team. When you talk about the roster makeup, going back to that double A team, it's a lot of guys who have college hopes and some guys who are in college already, and a lot of varsity athletes. The single A team is some JV guys mixed in with some varsity guys. It's a good mixture for development and players who are starting to get ready to go into that varsity level, facing some faster pitching, some better defense, a lot more where you're not seeing the CSAA. You're seeing a lot of teams make errors. We talked about, you got to play clean baseball in conference to win that conference. Right now, it's if you don't play clean baseball, you don't even have a chance against the other team on the other side.
It's going to be certainly a great team to watch. And looking through that roster, you got Austin Lucha, as well as Braylon Danielson, Zach Repke, Levi Hatchew, Heath Klein, David Torrey, Seth Klein, Raylan Myers, as well as Cade Morgan, Cam Miller, Jackson Thompson, Cooper Higgins, Wyatt Myers, Nick Routley, and Austin Davenport, the representatives from that team. As we mentioned, quite a few arms in that, quite a few bats. We'll see how the fielding certainly goes. That will be the one that will certainly tell the tale for how many wins and losses this team squad is, and especially compared to Double A. Double A's got quite a few bats. They got some definite athletes. They got some guys that can throw, maybe not to the same depth, but the versatility on that team is very, very apparent at the Double A as well. Looking at the Lumberjacks, maybe not necessarily as local of a team as we've seen over the last couple of years, but still representing Big Rapids. They'll play some of their home games here later on this summer at the Big Rapids varsity field at the high school. Really one name that many people may know from our coverage here on the Rundown representing this squad, and that's Tyler Gear out of Chip Hills. He certainly has been a dominant player for them. Now he's playing with the Lumberjacks, so good luck to Tyler and the Lumberjacks. Overall, a very good makeup of the roster, a lot of promise this year, and they also open up this weekend, so we wish the Lumberjacks some good luck.
Yeah, most definitely. Exciting time of year, getting to the hotter summer months. Almost probably been up on the dog days of summer, but right now, middle of June, it is a perfect time of year and some perfect time to play some baseball.
Absolutely. So those three teams will all be in action. And especially, Jack, it's great to see not only the representation on the local level for a lot of these athletes playing on some of these premier teams, but just having the ability to see three local teams represented here in our Big Rapids area. While two of them may not be playing primarily in Big Rapids, they're still representing this community and playing forward. And not only that, they're getting in innings, they're going to get in at bats, and they're going to get in reps. And that's the biggest thing. If you want to make those strides in that spring season to potentially play college ball, to play varsity ball, it works out in the summer and the fall to be able to get there. And these guys are all doing it.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll talk about it from the players aspect. You're getting that exposure, the skills, a platform to expose your skills and experience. It's all about the experience. At the end of the day, if you're out there getting reps, you're getting better every single day. The more opportunities you have to showcase your skills in what most would consider an off season for a lot of guys, these guys are going out and getting at it every single day and going out to play some fun baseball.
Absolutely. And they're playing at some elite venues. If you want the breakdown where these guys are playing each week, log on to BigRapidsDailyNews.com. On the right-hand side column, you can find all three teams and their week schedule for that representative week, as well as find scores, and you can find their game changers as well as schedule rosters and more at the hyperlinks in those headers. And we'll show you that on your screen as well so you don't miss out. It's going to be a great Summer Legion season, and it's going to be a great summer edition of the Rundown series. We can't wait to bring you some good stuff. We got some great interviews lined up with some local coaches as well as athletes. And of course, we'll be talking our Big Rapids Media Network sports. That includes some Red Wings, that includes some Tigers, and that of course includes our Detroit Lions. I had to make sure to shout out Jack's hat. It's a beautiful hat, and more people need to buy some stock in the Red Wings this year. They might not have made the playoff, but hold on, give us some time. We'll be back, right? Stevie Y, Jack, are we believing or are we going to jump ship?
I'll give it one more year. Next year better be the year.
Okay, so we'll break about down on another episode. So stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe Big Rapids Daily News if you watch us on YouTube. For all those listening in on WBRN, thanks for joining in. Be sure to keep that dial for next week. Same time, same place, Saturday, 107.7 at 3:30. And we'll see you next time here on The Rundown. We'll see you later, everybody.